All right. Welcome to the August 21st, 2023 podcast of Record Eraser. There's a couple of different topics to hit today. I'm going to mention the board dates that the Pardon Board has coming up, go into some frequently asked questions or topic areas that people want information about, and then I'm going to try to record a PowerPoint presentation teaching people how to read and research and review a Pennsylvania criminal record. So that'll all probably end up getting carved out and broken up. But anyway, let's start with the Board of Pardons. The Board of Pardons is having public hearings on commutation applications for incarcerated individuals October 12th and 13th. They're doing a merit review November 2nd of pardon and commutation applications. So the merit review is when the 5 board members get together and simply take a quick vote to see if there are 2 or more board members that support an application going forward to the public hearing. So the merit reviews are November 2nd for pardon and commutation applications. Public hearings for the people that have been approved or voted on successfully are November 6th, November 8th, and November 9th. So 3 days of pardon applications this year are public hearings. And then as we roll into next year, January 10th, 11th, and 12th of 2024 are the public hearings, and they already have February 15th and 16th scheduled for public hearings. So just to put a bow on it, what all of this tells me is that during those 3 days, they will be reviewing, I would think, upwards of 100 applicants. So just ballparking it, over 200 or 300 applicants from those 3 different dates. And we know from the last public sessions that over 87% of them got recommended for a pardon. So I think the throughput is increasing. I think the Pardon Board is reviewing more and more applications. I think they're scheduling their dates, and they will have them held publicly. And so we'll send out an email with the link to the broadcast where you can actually watch these hearings go, usually about 5 to 10 minutes for each one, and they do them one after another. Between 9 and 12 in the morning, and then one after another from like 1 to 4:30 in the afternoon, and they're going to do that 3 different days. So saddle up, get ready. That's the update from the Board of Pardons. I wanted to cover some topics that I receive now and then about areas of interest that people are expressing questions about. Keep in mind that as a lawyer, I'm always a little bit persnickety about language, and I frequently get people calling me and saying, I have a felony conviction, how do I get it expunged? And the answer is, you need a pardon from the governor before you can get it expunged. So an expungement is what you need, but a misdemeanor or a felony has to be, a misdemeanor or felony conviction has to be pardoned before it can be expunged. So that's going to be my answer, but just be aware of the mixing and matching of expunging, sealing, and pardon, and I will parse it out because they're all different procedures and processes. But one of the topics was, can you give information about expunging drug offenses in Pennsylvania? Give a comprehensive answer to expunging drug-related offenses in Pennsylvania. Drug-related convictions are going to be either misdemeanors or felonies, and so they need to go through the 2-year pardon process before they can be expunged. A drug charge that went into a diversionary program like ARD, or received a non-conviction disposition section such as Section 117, or probation without verdict, or any of these other things that do not show a conviction, they may be expungible. The expungement process is relatively quick, 3 to 6 months filed in the county of conviction. The pardon process is a 2-year process that precedes that for people with misdemeanor and felony convictions that need to get approval from the Board of Pardons and the governor before they can file for an expungement. As always, and I'll keep repeating this at the end of every answer, when you want a comprehensive answer, it's all going to start with looking at the record. That's why at Record Eraser, we always start with our little box that says, give me your first name, your last name, your date of birth, your phone number, and your email address, and we'll see if your record shows up on the UJS portal. If it shows up, we can look at it exactly. Sometimes people have expungable offenses and pardonable offenses. Sometimes they need the pardon first. Sometimes they only need an expungement, but I got to look at the record to know which. And so the comprehensive guide is always going to start with what exactly is on your record. By the way, ladies, possibly gentlemen, when you put your name into the form, it should be the name that you had at the time when you were charged. This also pertains to a gentleman I spoke with last week who changed religions and changed his entire name. And I was searching for a very long time for the wrong name on the UJS portal. So if you want us to look for your record for free and send it to you, tell us the name you were charged under and include a little note or something. Frequently people's names are misspelled when they're charged. Just tell us that. Tell us the misspelled name that you were charged under. I want to find the record, then we can correct everything else later. So that was one of the topics to hit. I received comments about qualifying drug convictions for the expedited pardon process. And so the expedited pardon process is still a pardon application. It's a pardon application that includes the court records and gives a very brief explanation of what was happening at the time and why you want the pardon. The trick to the expedited is that it pertains to marijuana-related offenses, and by that, non-violent marijuana misdemeanors, paraphernalia-related cases can be expedited. Non-violent marijuana felonies, I think they can be expedited, but the expediting process is all sort of a gatekeeping process inside of the Board of Pardons. What we do is file a pardon application, say whether or not we think they're qualified for expedited, and then file the application. The board recently has been very good at communicating. We filed a couple as expedited, and the board wrote back and said, well, we found something that means this won't be expedited. They didn't reject it. We didn't have to file it again. They simply said, we're going to move this on to the regular track. So it goes from the expedited quick review in a year or less, hopefully, to the regular investigative track. So qualifying drug convictions are marijuana-related paraphernalia, misdemeanors, non-violent felonies. I'll want to double check that. And those are what can be expedited. Our office recently received a bunch of expedited applications. We filed the expedited applications. We just received notice that our clients need to attend the public presentation. The public hearing was waived by a vote of 5-0, meaning on the expedited cases, I think they're looking for cases to green light that all 5 board members can agree they don't have any issues or questions, and then those candidates don't even do a public hearing, meaning that we're anticipating they're going to get a 5-0 recommendation after the public hearing to the governor, and the governor will issue a pardon. Even if the board doesn't want to hear from you at the public hearing, the case will still be listed on the list for the expedited hearings, the public hearings. It's just our clients won't be called. We don't need to be there, but it will be voted on following the public hearings. So public hearings, some people have to show up and do public presentations, some don't. After the public hearings, there's always a vote on every case that's listed to find out if they get the votes they need to go forward to the governor. So there's a topic suggested for me about untangling complexity, managing multiple Pennsylvania cases in the expungement process. So it is true that many people that get criminal charges get them more than once, especially if they're dealing with a drug or alcohol issue. or they're struggling with economic challenges. They pick up quite a few cases at one time, and so then it becomes a more complex case. Goes back to the question, are these convictions or expungements? Most of the time they're convictions, because if you are picking up charges repeatedly, the police might give you a bite at the apple the first time and either give you a warning or let you get the ARD program. But if you keep running into the law, they're going to start giving you convictions. When you receive multiple convictions, can they be pardoned? Yes. I believe what the pardon board looks at is over what length of time were the crimes being committed. If there was a period of drug addiction where somebody was committing crimes from 2005 to 2010 until they got clean and straight and they've been sober since 2010, I think that's a good candidate, because all of the crimes, no matter how many there are covered by the same explanation. I was in a bad place, I got addicted, I was using, I was running into the law, I got clean, and now look, in 2023, I haven't had a conviction or a charge for 13 years. I think that's a great pardon application. The board is going to investigate it. They're going to take a close look at it. But I think anytime you have 10 years of sobriety, you make a good candidate. I also think that if the shorter the amount of time the crimes occurred over, the better. If your crime spree went from 2000 to 2010 with a couple of crimes every other year, the board's going to look at a 10-year period of drug use and criminal activity. Now, even if you've been clean for 12 or 13 years, they also know that in the beginning you were doing crimes for 10 years. And so I think they want to look at the length almost of criminal addiction. How long were you committing crimes or being addicted? And how long has it been since that period that you've been law-abiding, staying out of trouble, and a good citizen? There aren't any clear guidelines, except I think of it like a seesaw, and the board takes the amount of time of sobriety, the reasons why a candidate needs the pardon, and the explanation for why the crimes occurred, and they balance that against the fact that the person may have 5 or 7 or 10 convictions, and there's quite a past to get rid of. So those are the complexities with a multiple case pardon application. I don't think the question is as pertinent to multiple expungement cases, because if you qualify for an expungement, we just file the petition. In 3 to 6 months it should be removed, and usually the expungible cases, I'm second guessing myself here because I got an old timer and we ran his Pennsylvania State Police record, and it came back, I think, with 6 or 7 cases that were expungible. It looked like he was very good at just remaining silent, not admitting his crimes, maybe being on the edge of a circle of criminals, but his charges just kept getting null-prossed. If they're null-prossed, that means you weren't convicted. That means it's not a conviction. If you don't have a conviction, you don't need the pardon. And so you can have multiple expungements, but they're just one expungement per docket number in the county where the charge was. And again, if we can look at your record, we can tell you whether you're eligible for an expungement or not. It's very easy to tell you if you're eligible for an expungement. More complicated to tell you if the pardon board is going to review convictions and think you're a good candidate. There's also been a lot of interest lately from school teaching and nurses. Nursing school applicants, nurses who either got into trouble or wanted to get a nursing degree after they got into trouble. Nursing is a profession where you need to be licensed, and the licensing is always going to include the running of a criminal history and a background check. And so these records will always show up until they are cleared, convictions by a pardon followed by an expungement. School teaching, likewise, one of the earliest areas I got into when I was clearing records was clearing summary offenses that are more than 5 years old, because you would have college students at Millersville University, a very popular, famous local educational college, and these students would call because they would get a retail theft or an underage drinking summary offense or something, but the rules, I believe, of student teaching were that you couldn't shadow or go into a high school if you had even a summary conviction on your record. And so these college students would have a retail theft that is usually not expungible until it's more than 5 years old. And they would be saying, what am I going to do? How am I going to complete my certification? How am I going to complete my degree? One of the quirky things about the pardon process is that pardons not only remove misdemeanor and felony convictions, they can also remove summary convictions, and they might be able to review a summary conviction in as little as 2 years or less. So a college student that has a retail theft conviction, that is a conviction and it's too late to appeal it, we might file a pardon on that to get it reviewed by the pardon board within a year or two, because I think the pardon board is going to be very sympathetic. And then if it's pardoned, it can be expunged before the student's junior or senior year in college, assuming that they did that retail theft when they were, a freshman or a sophomore or a high school kid or whatever. So yes, those professional areas are very sensitive to licensing and records as well as convictions. So those are the topics I wanted to hit for now.